So good morning and welcome to today's candidates discussion for the Burnaby Lougheed riding. My name is Paul Holden, President and CEO of the Burnaby Board of Trade, and I'm joined today by Katrina Chen of the BC NDP. Hi Katrina. Tariq Malik of the BC Liberals. Hi Tarik. And Andrew Williamson from the BC Green Party. Thank you. Welcome all of you and thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to start by acknowledging that the event is being held today on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Tsleil-Waututh, Musqueam and Squamish nations. I'd also like to thank the Burnaby Board of Trade's annual partners, who are a great group of organisations who support us in our work throughout the year. At the platinum level, we have the Burnaby Now and the BCIT School of Business. At the gold level, we have SFU, Pacific Blue Cross, Douglas College, Fortis BC, Electronic Arts and ABC Recycling. And at the silver level, Scotiabank, Trans Mountain, Appia Development, Alexander College and the Port of Vancouver. So thank you very much to those organisations who support us throughout the year. So what I'll do is I'll kick off today by going over the guidelines, which the candidates have already received. Candidates will each be given 2 minutes at the start to provide some opening remarks in alphabetical order by last name. Candidates are asked not to interrupt the other candidates during those opening statements. During the Q&A period, questions will come from me, and I'll direct questions to the appropriate candidates. If necessary, questions will be directed to other candidates to ensure balance. Candidates' answers should be limited to a minute to ensure a wide discussion. Now I'd like to kick off with the uninterrupted opening remarks section of the event today. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. And first up, we have Katrina Chen from the BC NDP. Welcome, Katrina. Excuse me, and your 2 minutes starts now.
Thank you so much. I would also like to begin by recognizing that we are gathering here on the unceded traditional territory of the Coast Salish peoples, and I really want to thank Burnaby Board of Trade for hosting this event. I've learned a lot from you and your members over the past few years, and it's been a real honor serving as your MLA during the past 3.5 years, and also as the Minister of State for Childcare. Previously, I served as the Burnaby School trustee, but during the past 13 years, I've always worked in this community since I graduated from SFU. Burnaby's my home. This is where my son is born and raised, and I am committed to continue doing the work with you all. I feel like we've accomplished a lot during the past 3.5 years, and especially learning from local communities and partners such as Burnaby Board of Trade and in Burnaby Lougheed area. I also have worked very closely with the North Road Business Improvement Association. And what I've really learned is that how small businesses are a key part of our lives. That from the coffee that we grab in the morning, the groceries that we take home, the dry cleaning, the restaurants that we use, especially during this pandemic, that our government has not only acted very quickly to provide funding, but we also expanded, for example, restaurant services, which is key to the Burnaby Lougheed community, and also to protect commercial tenants who could not have been evicted during the pandemic to ensure that they are protected. And since we became government, one of the first things that we've done is to cut small business taxes by 20%. And the NDP has also eliminated PST on electricities. And I know there's a lot more work to do, and we have to commit to continue to keep good paying jobs in British Columbia. And one of our commitments is also to keep the 200,000 jobs that we really need to go through this pandemic, to support the hardest sector, to investing people. Because when you investing people, it is investing in our economy. As your local MOA, I've always listened, learned from you, and also to look for common grounds, to work together, to move together. That is something I've always been doing with Burnaby Board of Trade members. I will always be here for you, and I look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you, Katrina. And within time, thank you very much. So now I'm going to start this again. We come over to Tariq Malik from the BC Liberals. Your 2 minutes starts now.
Thank you, Paul. It's an honor to be here and talking to all the panelists. I came to Canada about 32 years ago with my parents from Bangladesh with a vision to have a better life. I started working in agriculture and poultry farm. While attending university, I took a part-time job at Burnaby as a delivery driver to pay my tuition and rent. With my vision and dedication, it led me owning not one but 2 franchise locations for the same company. As my business grew, I was able to venture into real estate and construction. Today, as a Lower Mainland businessman, married to Afsana, to the biggest support of my life. We have 4 children and they attend elementary, high school, and university. And a leader in the Bangladeshi community, I would be honored to be your MLA for Burnaby. I have deep roots in the community, and I look forward to continuing in this journey. The engine of the economy is small business, and we need to keep it strong, viable, to better provide for our children, our seniors, and families. As an active community member, I'm always ready to roll up my sleeves to help. I strongly believe we need to hold hands and stand together, shoulder to shoulder, regardless of our place of origin, color, or skin, or religious beliefs. I cast my first vote as a Canadian 28 years ago. It felt that I had a voice of my, I had a voice of my own, and my opinion mattered. My commitment to you is to bring Burnaby to Victoria and have your voice heard. Since September 29 until now, I have drawn up over 5,000 homes on 55%, almost 50% of my riding to connect with residents and listening to their concerns. I humbly ask you to support and vote for me so we can have a voice for Burnaby Lougheed. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tariq, for those comments. And now to wrap up the opening remark part of the event today, Andrew Williamson from the BC Green Party, I'd like to invite you to start your 2 minutes now.
Thanks, Paul. I'd like to echo Katrina's land acknowledgement and add that I'm a first-generation Canadian from settler culture and have been prioritizing in my business and my personal life listening to Indigenous cultures and other cultures in the province to add to my experience and knowledge as a British Columbian. I'm a small business owner in Burnaby. I've been a Burnaby Board of Trade member for a number of years. Over the last few years, our company has made 6 film and TV productions where we've been able to employ a number of BC residents and Burnaby residents on our productions. And we've been grappling, as a lot of small businesses have, with the impact of COVID. The last 6 months, it's hit our industry particularly hard. We've had to avail ourselves of some of the federal government's assistance programs. And so I would say my empathy is very high to what Burnaby Board of Trade members are facing in this recovery. And part of my decision to run for the BC Greens was their very strong commitment to continue to work through that COVID recovery together with a focus on small business. We released a platform yesterday with a very specific plan for small business and tourism. The details are all available on the website. I'll maybe save that for the Q&A section. But I think the goal of the party is to continue to focus on how to bring the economy back in British Columbia. And as many of you are aware, with an overlaying concern about climate change, we know in our riding that the Trans Mountain Pipeline is tearing up neighborhoods and causing construction delays and concerns about oil spills in Burnaby Lougheed. That's a key priority for the Greens. How can we transition our resource-based economy into clean, green tech? And I know a lot of companies in the Burnaby Board of Trade are looking at business models and revenue projections and trying to strategize for the years ahead about how to adapt to the new economy. We're committed to working with you on that process.
Thank you, Andrew. Thanks everybody for those opening remarks. Now we come on to the Q&A section, and I'll kind of just randomly go around this and give each person a turn to go first with the questions that we go through. First of all, and we'll touch on COVID and the impacts of COVID on the business community. It's represented an unprecedented challenge. The impacts were quick and were immense in many cases. The next government will need to manage the ongoing pandemic while also sustaining our small business community and eventually bolstering consumer confidence. I'd like to ask each of you in turn, what would your party's plan be for doing this? How will you support Burnaby businesses through the next months and years? On this one, I'll start in a rotation from what looks to be on my left. So Tarik, I'll ask you to go first, and then Katrina, and then Andrew. And you have 1 minute each.
Thank you, Paul. As I mentioned, that I have drawn almost 55% of my writing. I have come across people and listened to people, and I heard very closely what they're saying. It is hard to see that our small businesses have taken a toll, and a lot of businesses are shutting down. People are putting their heart and soul to build this community, and it is hard to see they are shutting down. They don't even know if they can survive and they can run their business. That's a Liberal government. We have come with a policy of GST elimination for the first year, then a small rollback of 3% for the next year, and also we have a plan that we are going to eliminate the small business tax permanently, which is going to revitalize our economy. People are going to go back to work. Our kids, our children, they can get their part-time jobs back in the restaurants or all sorts of businesses. From my personal experience being a businessman for all my life, I think it is time that the government has taken the policy and taken some action. So I'm excited about that.
Thank you, Tarik. As mentioned, Katrina, I'll come to you next.
Thank you so much. And I think I'm confident that the BCNDP and me personally has already have a strong record here about how we have worked closely with our local small business communities and business communities through this pandemic to learn from them, to bring the feedback, and also have reacted as quickly as possible to provide relief and program services, including expand restaurant services, which is key again to the Burnaby Lougheed area. Commercial tenants could not be evicted during the pandemic. We provided relief for their hydro bills. We've cut 25% of property taxes this year. And we are also providing more grants and supports to keep 200,000 jobs. And we're also building roads, schools, childcare that will help to create 18,000 jobs a year, and also keeping people working and running. Because when you invest in people, it is important that you're investing in our economy, because people can shop, spend locally, and enjoy their lives locally. When the BC Liberals fail to invest people through years of cuts to healthcare and services that has caused so much damage, that we've seen how this pandemic has really hurt our seniors, for example, they're already.
Sorry, I didn't realize it was going to go off like that. Well. There we go. Sorry about that. I'm going to have to turn that down or turn it off. Katrina, thank you very much for those comments. Andrew, we'll try not to get the musical background jumping in for you as well. But let's have your minute to respond.
Fair enough. Thank you. I'll start with the 4 key points from the BC Greens platform announcement yesterday: to allocate $300 million to create a 6-month rent subsidy program for small businesses, to retool the provincial grant program to focus on supporting small tourism operators, to work with the not-for-profit tourism business, cultural facilities, and attractions to develop a separate granting program that will ensure these signature businesses can survive COVID-19, and to work with the federal government to establish a repayable loan program for the hospitality sector and for tourism operators that exceed the criteria for the small tourism operator grant program. I would just add that I think Sonia First to Know, the BC Greens leader, made a very good point in the debate this week, where she said we could be working in Victoria on these very important recovery programs now, were it not for a snap election being called in the province. And I actually think Andrew Wilson made a good point when he accused the NDP of delaying support for the hospitality sector, making them wait now until the new year for the final part of that support. I think we need action. I think we need it quickly. I can tell you that as a small business owner, you need help, and you need help fast. I think that's the committed way to getting through this recovery process.
Thank you, Andrew. We'll come on to the next question now, and I've decided to do a stopwatch rather than a timer, so we won't have the music blaring. We'll come on to the next question, which is on taxation. Well, the next couple of questions on taxation. And we'll start with you, Katrina. And Tarik, if I could ask you to maybe adjust your microphone volume up a little bit, if you can. So we're going to start with you, Katrina, on this next one. On taxation, the employer health tax is a net new cost for businesses. Currently, it applies to businesses with $500,000 in payroll, which is roughly 8 or 9 people, meaning that a lot of small businesses have had to pay that tax. What's your position on the employer health tax in general? And would you consider extending the payroll exemption threshold from $500,000 to $1.5 million to remove more small businesses from the tax? Katrina?
Thank you. And I want to thank Burnaby Board of Trade for your ongoing advocacy on this issue, as we've worked together to have so many conversations, to learn from each other, and also to find a common ground moving ahead. And that is something that we'll continue to commit to make sure we have an open dialogue about how we can adjust and make sure that we can work with the business community in many years to come. And I think it's important to mention that 85% of businesses don't have to pay employer health tax. Only a business with payroll of over 1.5 million pays the full amount. And actually, all of the revenue comes from employer health tax. 96% comes from the largest 5% of employers, which again, many Burnaby Lougheed businesses are being exempt. And because of this, we have eliminated unfair medical service premium, the MSP. BC was the last province to move ahead to this direction, and most Burnaby business owners and their workers don't have to pay this unfair tax anymore, which is the biggest tax cut. We have to continue to work with people, invest in people, because when you don't invest in people like the BC Liberals did, you fail our economy.
Thank you, Katrina. Andrew, can I come to you for that question?
Absolutely. I would echo Katrina. I think not having to pay the NMSP has been a significant benefit for British Columbians. I, as a small business owner in the film industry, would definitely support increasing the threshold. We are one of those industries caught in that threshold where a single one-off production is still obligated to pay that employer health tax, even though We don't have the ongoing obligation to jobs and employees once the production is wrapped. So I think that's a detriment to one-off productions. And I think whether it's an exemption or raising the threshold, I think that's definitely something I would like to look at if I'm able to work for on behalf of Burnaby Lougheed in Victoria.
Thank you, Andrew. And finally, Tarik, if we could have your thoughts on that.
As I mentioned earlier today, in the meeting that this illegal, we're going to get rid of GST and also 3% introduction next year, and also we're going to eliminate small business taxes. On top of that, the BC Labour is committed to appoint an independent tax commission to review all the taxes, which include the 2050 taxes that the NDP government has introduced, also increase taxes. So that's what we're going to do, and we're going to act on it.
Thank you. I'm going to come to another tax-related question now, and it's one which has been a concern for our members for a long while. And it was the burden of soaring property taxes, which are driven by the highest and best use system, where the value of a property is based on its redevelopment potential, not what it's being used for right now. I'd like to start with you, Andrew, and ask each of you what your take is on the highest and best use, and will your party commit to implementing solutions, potentially such as a split assessment, which would save local businesses significantly on their property taxes? Andrew, if we could start with you.
I think so. I think it's a big issue in the province. It's certainly something that I know people dealing with on the personal front as well as on the business front. And I think the Greens have been very clear about the affordable housing issue in this province. It's one of the key issues of this election. And I think proposals like this are exactly what we need to consider to make it continue to be a vibrant place to do business in BC and not penalize those commercial owners or even residents on the property tax front from being able to pay the rest of their bills and keep investing in the economy to move it forward. So definitely a commitment from the Greens on the affordability issue in the province. Thank
you, Andrew. Tarik, can we come to you on that same question about the highest and best use?
I couldn't agree with you, Andy, anymore. I mean, it is the taxes are taking a toll as a small business owners and also the property owners. So there's something definitely that we need to work on. So BC Labour is committed to implement that split tax, so which can be separated from the commercial and also the rest of the building. So that is our goal, and that will help tremendously for the business owners.
Thank you, Tarik. Katrina, can I come to you?
Yes, I totally understand. This is an important issue that has been a challenge for the many businesses in our communities for many years. It's also a very complicated issue, as many Board of Trade members would know, that needs to work together with municipalities to find solutions together, because municipalities also have part of the responsibility for this taxation. So there's a lot of conversation that has been going on during the past few years when the BC Liberals ignored it for 16 years and take no action on this issue. That under the leadership of Minister Selena Robinson, they've been having meaningful conversations, and actually just right before COVID hit, that there were interim solution that was introduced, that we already have many communities that are willing to work with the provincial government to provide relief for this property taxes in the coming year. We have to find long-term solutions together, and we're looking forward to go back to continue with the interim solution. Again, we have a lot of municipalities who have already been on board to work on the interim solution as we continue to find a long-term solution together.
Thank you, Katrina. Coming on to the next question, and this is with regards to climate change policy. To make environmental options less costly for businesses to adopt, would you support offering more significant incentives to encourage businesses to improve their sustainability? And would you support making those incentives and supports more upfront and immediate, as opposed to making businesses wait for rebates, reimbursements, or savings down the road? We'll go back to the beginning of the rotation, and Tarik, if I could ask you to start on that one.
Of course, the climate change it's the biggest concern that everybody has mentioned as I was knocking doors. So that's what the BC Liberal, we are encouraging the homeowners and the business to implement that retrofitting, and also being into construction business. I think there's a lot of work can be done with the city and the civil government. Why can't we implement the net zero on the passive home? Why we can have clean energy rather than using, for example, geothermal, we can be using that to replace forced air. We can use the solar panel for, we can have the surplus to give it back to BC Head. So those are the things that we need to really look into and work closely with the city governments.
Thank you, Tarik. Katrina?
Yes, thank you. I do. And I believe that our BC NDP government is actually already doing some of this, especially through our Clean BC plan, actually the most aggressive plan. We've worked together with the BC Greens, and we have to do more to deal with climate emergency. But we have already provided quite a lot of incentives, for example, for both residential and commercial retrofitting. And I'm quite eager to also learn from Burnaby Board of Trade members to find out how we can make those supports and programs better, maybe with more upfront grant. So I would love to hear from your feedback. But for example, we do have a Clean BC Industry Fund that provides funding for innovative projects to reduce emission and improve industrial operations. And we're also committed to expand our Clean BC plan with aggressive measures. So it's important that we can work with partners like business communities to learn how we can move forward together so we can meet our commitment to have net zero emission by 2050, which is the NDP commitment. When the BC Liberals ignored climate change for many, many years, we want to work together with our community, with business to move forward.
Thank you, Katrina. Andrew.
Obviously a clear priority for the BC Greens. I would agree that Clean BC at the outset was a very ambitious plan. Unfortunately, the NDP government support of the LNG plant in Kitimat means that Clean BC can only reach 75% of its targets. So actually it isn't planned out to meet 100% of those targets that Katrina says is the goal. So I think that's the job in front of us. I think that's why the minority government in Victoria was working so well on this issue and why I hope that it continues after the election. The IAE, the International Energy Association, declared this week that solar is king in the energy field. Looking at the global markets, the fossil fuel industry is dying. Solar and renewables are poised to replace them. We've been through this many times in human history. It's a difficult transition. It's going to be very difficult for businesses, but I think we have a plan and I think there's a way that we can tackle it. Some key points from the platform yesterday: establish a $500 million fund to support sustainable jobs, develop a clean jobs program focused on enhancing BC's natural assets, implementing a just transition program for workers in the oil and gas sector and other industries in transition. This is something that I think is very important. I filmed in parts of this province. I know how hungry people are for jobs. I know how they look to the resource sector for those jobs, but I also know they do not want to work in an industry that's going to destroy their environment. When there is an alternate job for them to have and training for them to transition, that is their preference. That is our goal.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. Coming on now to another change of subject now, and we'll talk about childcare. The Burnaby Board of Trade believes accessible childcare is pivotal to some workers being able to return to their jobs and full productivity during COVID-19, but it's also a longer-term strategy to increase the participation rate of women in the workforce. Could you speak to how you view the role of childcare in our economy and what your plans are for making childcare more affordable and accessible? Katrina, I'll start with you.
Thank you. And I've had the real honor to serve as the Minister of State for Childcare, which I've worked really hard during the past 3.5 years to bring a foundation to build an inclusive, affordable, quality childcare services for all BC families. And when I started the work in 2017, I am a mom who struggled with childcare and continues to struggle with childcare. And I always ask myself, how come this is the first time that childcare is a priority for the provincial government? How did the previous government ignore the childcare crisis and the lack of investment, even cutting wages, took away affordable childcare from the BC Liberals for 16 years, and that was not acceptable. But we have achieved a lot in a short 3.5 years. We've supported lowering childcare fees for tens and thousands of families, and including 33,000 families that are paying $10 a day or less. We've accelerated the creation of spaces by funding 20,000 spaces. And unfortunately, so far, I've not seen another party's platform that is as committed as the BC NDP's to do a systematic change. We cannot ignore the childcare crisis, and the BC NDP is the only party that has a plan to invest in our kids, invest in families, because it is good for our economy.
Thank you, Katrina. Andrew, can I come to you?
Absolutely. As you know, Sonia Furstenau is a huge champion of childcare. She worked closely with Katrina. I think there's some key differences between the party platform, but I think, again, in a minority government situation in Victoria, we continue to do this work. This was important to Sonia. There's some key elements in the platform. It was important to us as young parents. Like Katrina, we struggled to find childcare. Equity for women is a key value of mine. It is why we worked so hard to find childcare when our daughter was growing up so my wife could be in the workforce. I think it's very important for the province and for the economy. The Greens have committed to provide up to $500 a month for families with children under 3 and a stay-at-home parent or a parent who wants to return to the workforce, and a focus on early childhood education by bringing childcare under the Ministry of Education for kids who are 4 and 5, so that funding is enshrined and so it's stable and so it's reliable, because taking care of kids at that age is one of the best things we can do for the future of the economy in BC.
Thank you, Andrew. And let's come on to Tarik.
Thank you, Paul. Childcare is a vital part of our community, and it shouldn't be a barrier for our, for people, for men and women who want to go back to work and move on with their life. So that's a deliverable. We come with a strong plan, which is $10 a day childcare policy for family income of $65,000. Then all $20 and $30 after $125,000 family income. This NDP has plan is that, and as you can see, they have literally failed the program. That's why this river has come up strong, and we really need to emphasize on that. And not only that, we are going to create 10,000 spaces through the country. I have, have not thought, as I said, yesterday I was at the skating station where a family came up to me and they're saying that we need more childcare. I have some really moms pushing their children in the cart, and they have to take the transit and go to their work, and they can put their kids in the childcare. So what I propose that why we build childcare facilities near the transit, so people can ease off their life and they can move on their life. So I think that those are things that we need to work on.
Thank you, Tarik. Just 1 or 2 questions left, if I may. Transportation is a really important issue, and one of the key benefits to locating a business in Burnaby, and we hear this all the time, is our central location in the region and proximity to key transportation and transit infrastructure. What do you think are the key transportation challenges in our region? What investments in infrastructure need to be made to ensure we can continue to move people, goods, and services through Burnaby and across Metro Vancouver? And Andrew, I think it's your turn first.
Sure. Thanks, Paul. It's a great question. It's something front of mind for us while we're commuting, and has also been changing and adapting during COVID. I think that we need to work with local and regional governments to redesign the transit funding model and get an equitable, sustainable, long-term funding model for transit. I think that it makes sense to move people around. And I think to your point about businesses, I think the more people that are taking sustainable transport, the freer the roads are to move some of those trucks and shipments that can't be moved around in any other way. And I think from a climate change perspective, from a congestion perspective, for livable and walkable neighborhoods, we all know that more people using transit is the best way to move people around. It's the cleanest, it's the most efficient, it's the easiest. It reduces costs for people around parking and fuel. It obviously helps on the emission front. I think we're in a transition now where more and more people are working from home. More and more people are looking to their communities to be walkable and livable and free of traffic. And I think an emphasis on transit is one really good way to achieve that.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrew. Tarik, can we come to you? Tarik, if we can come to you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, sorry about that. We're having some problem here. When it comes to transportation, I think we have proven, this river has a track record. We are good at building things. We are good at building highways, roads, and construction. So this river, we have a strong policy. We're going to invest $8 billion to building the infrastructure, whether it takes roads, highways. So we are committed to do that. As you know, that our leader has put a platform that we are going to build the massive tunnel bridge, a 10-lane bridge, which is going to be the state of the art, which is really going to improve our transportation and build a connection between the cities, and that will help tremendously with the business community. Those are the initiatives that we are taking, and it's not only BC, everywhere. Sorry, it's not only in Vancouver, but everywhere in BC that we'll be working on the building roads and highways.
Thank you. Thanks, Tarik. Katrina.
Yes, I cannot agree how investing in transportation is so key to our economy. And this is something that Burnaby Lougheed residents really care about, especially residents in the Forest Grove, SFU area where bus services could be challenging. And that is why our government moved really quickly to commit to build the Broadway, Surrey and Lenley SkyTram. And we're also moving fast to build the new Patalo Bridge. We're also committed to provide free transit to kids up to the age of 12, because we need to provide more transportation options for families, and cost should never be a concern. We have removed bridge tolls, and I cannot tell you how many stories I've heard from local business here in Burnaby that they've saved thousands and thousands of dollars because of that unfair toll that was put on by BC Liberals. And unfortunately, this is really another area that the BC Liberals have neglected for years, not investing in any public infrastructure. And I don't know how we trust their records during the past 16 years. Whereas the BC NDP has invested in transportation, public infrastructures, and will continue to do that in the coming years, which will create 18,000 jobs per year. It's good for our economy.
Thank you, Katrina. I'd like to finish with one last question. One of the things that we've noticed during the COVID period is the speedier than normal, should we say, response from all levels of government to the needs and requirements of citizens and of businesses. And we often call it's an orientation to yes. As an organization, we've always been at our core an organization that finds a way to yes, and we've noticed that very much from all levels of government during this period. Whether it's from launching new programs quickly, such as allowing restaurants to expand patios or liquor service, or rolling out significant new funding and support programs in record time. Perhaps you could comment on this change that we're seeing in terms of the reaction speed of government, and should this be a model for how governments can be more responsive and nimble in the future? I think, Tarik, we'll start with you on this one.
Thank you. That's a very good question. As a small business owner all my life, I have faced that personally every walk of the business that I have entered into. So, BC Labour, we are committed to appoint an independent commission who can look into these policies, and we can fast forward things so people business owners, they can move on with the business, and locals, they can go and enjoy their establishment. And there's so many things that we can improve on. Why do we have to wait months and months to get the license? We can work with the local government to fast forward those things, so we can have a better establishment and enjoy what we have to offer for the city.
Thank you, Tarik. Katrina.
Yes, I think provincially, our provincial government, BC NDP, has responded very quickly in record time during the past few months, including, personally, I've worked on the temporary emergency funding for childcare providers to keep many small businesses, especially childcare providers in our community, to maintain their services. And even though I did not have a lot of sleep during the first few months of COVID, and I have to count on the coffee shops, the sushi restaurant near my community office to keep me alive, I have never seen program rollouts in such a fast speed, and I've really learned a lot throughout the process. And I think one thing is that we understand COVID has brought up a lot of challenges, but it has also brought us opportunities to look at things in a new way, to do things in a new way. So I thank you for this question. I think it's important, especially if you look at the BC NDP records. Only in the 3.5 years since 2017, we've achieved over 80% of our commitment from 2017. That is historical for any political party in this province. And we need to continue to do that, especially when it comes to the health and safety of our local residents. When the BC Liberals fail to take many actions to support people, we're getting a lot done in a short period of time.
Thank you, Katrina. Andrew, would you like to comment?
Thanks, Paul. I think this is a core value of the BC Greens platform, and I think anybody that watched the debate with Sonia Forceneau, that message came through loud and clear. It was certainly reflected in the radio talk shows yesterday, and the people who phoned and texted me to say that they are going to switch their vote to the BC Greens for that compassionate view of government in the province, that notion of inclusion, that notion of taking care of people, that notion of building a future together. I think that I agree with Katrina about some of what the NDP has accomplished, but I would just remind people they accomplished that in concert as part of a minority government with the BC Greens. I think the snap election is a decision to get a majority in the legislature, and we're advocating for a continued model where governance is shared and there's the ability to have a voice like Sonia's at the table to remind people that British Columbians have to come first, not re-election, not government, but this idea that we all need to get through COVID and beyond together. And I think, again, like I said, Sonia said it better than I could, but inclusion and compassion are a key value of the BC Greens.
Thank you, and thanks very much to all three of you. That's the end of our question time that we have, and I appreciate you providing very thoughtful answers to all those questions, and we look forward to sharing this video with our members. So I would encourage everybody, obviously, to get out and vote. Make sure you cast your vote by mail during advanced voting or on election day, which is, as we all know, is Saturday, the 24th of October. And to everybody else out there, please stay up to date on all of our programming and events. Next week is Small Business Week. And so we have free programming every day of the week next week. Please visit bbot.ca for more information on those events. And on November the 5th, Thursday, November the 5th, is our 21st Annual Business Excellence Awards. Be sure to sign up so you can come and enjoy that. It's on at lunchtime. So please make sure you sign up and enjoy that. Once again, Tarik, Katrina, and Andrew, thank you very much for joining us today. And we thank you for stepping up to serve your communities. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Katrina. Thanks, Tariq.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.